Hi, everybody. It's Nafa Perkins from Electra Astrology. We're diving even deeper into relationships today. We are looking at the shadow of Juno. And as I was preparing for this talk, I was wondering whether I had already been talking about the shadow of Juno and questioning why does Juno feel like it has so many shadows? Why does this relationship asteroid bring so much baggage? So we're going to talk about that. But I think that relationships in general, especially when we're trying to deepen in and really find right relationship and figure out how to really create a deep and sacred partnership, we have to face a lot of shadows. So before we get into it, if you don't already have my Astrology as a Superpower ebook, you can get that in the box below. I've posted it both on YouTube and on the podcast, Star Narratives. And if you're listening to this and you're noticing that you need a little relational insight of your own, we are about to move into a Venus retrograde, by the way, and so relationships are going to be front and center. I do have a really good relationship reading on my website, electraastrology.com, where we look at your chart and the chart of somebody else and get some deeper information about what the two of you are doing, what the problems may mean, and how to solve them if that's what you are wishing. So it is interesting that I am doing these Juno talks right as we're moving into Venus retrograde. Venus and Juno are not the same archetype, but of course they are both relational. And when I'm doing a chart reading, I'm looking at both Venus and Juno when people come with relationship questions. And of course, the seventh house, which is the house of Venus and Libra. Astrologically, we begin in the first house at the rising sign with the archetype of Aries. It is all about us. We're trying to understand ourselves. We're going to be talking about that in Aries season, but it does relate to relationships. With Aries, we're working on who we are, how we perceive ourselves, and how others perceive us. And it's a very independent energy. We each have that sense of this is me, and this is my life, and these are my needs, and these are my wants and desires, and this is how I'm going to do it. But on the other side of that is Libra. That is the descendant. And that rising and descendant, those lines are always intertwined. And the descendant speaks to who we are in our partnerships. And that, of course, is a Venus-ruled idea. We want to show up with our Venus qualities of being attractive, pleasurable, beautiful, flirtatious, desired. At the same time, we have to integrate the parts of ourselves that also want to be independent and alone and strong on our own. So relationships always come down to some bigger questions around who am I and who are we? And how do these two versions mix and match with one another? So I talked about in the first episode of Juno the idea of making commitments. And in any long-term relationship, which is Juno, Juno represents the long-term marriage or relationship, and it can also be a business partnership, the people that we are loyal to. Juno is also related to allegiance and alliance. So these are the people within our circles that we are bonded to in some way. We make commitments. I want to stay with you because I love you. But also, you have qualities that drive me nuts or qualities that I don't like, but I'm still committed to you nonetheless. We also talked about how when something is wrong in our relationship, rather than saying it's you and it's your fault and you need to change, we do better by turning that lens to ourselves and saying, what am I bringing to the table? In the last episode, we talked about karmic relationships versus sacred love and the difference between the two. Because the karmic relationships can feel very compelling and sexy and spicy, but they bring difficulty and they tend to be relationships that are more about lessons. We want to be able to differentiate between those karmic relationships and the sacred partnerships. Now, sacred partnership is what most people, I would assume, are moving toward or desiring. Sacred partnership has a certain kind of ground and a certain returning no matter what is going on. And so today we're diving into some of the real shadow sides of the sacred partnership. Because, of course, these shadows are going to rise up in a karmic partnership as well. But in the karmic partnership, they really can't be solved. Like one or both of the partners is just not capable of really fully showing up and like dialing in. So, again, I want to recommend this book, Asteroid Goddesses by Demetra George, because she really dives into this subject matter. She's been a huge help to me in studying these archetypes over the years. So, to begin, if you are in the middle to later side of Gen X generation, anywhere between about 1972 and about 1986, you were born with the planet Pluto in the sign of Libra. So this is a generation of people that are really tasked with relational work, transforming of relationship. So I'm especially talking to you if you're in this generation, but of course, most of us in one way or another have been tasked in our own unique way with relationship and how to do it. And it's hard. And our chances of really having successful long-term relationships, I would say, aren't all that high. I mean, look around you at how many people you know that have actually been able to work their relationship and stay together for many, many years. It is done for sure. And it's something I believe that we all aspire to in some way. We want that, but it takes a lot of work. So, as much as we all want that ideal love and fairy tale of, oh, I found my person and we lived happily ever after, it doesn't work like that. And that's not really what we're here to do as humans. We aren't here necessarily to just live happily ever after. We're here to do the deeper work to evolve the soul. And, we don't really evolve without other people because we are pack animals and our whole relationship to who we are is so tied up with how other people see us and who we become within relationships to other people that it's very hard to live a life where it's just a solo, independent life of solitude. Some people do that, most people don't. So then we start to look at relationships and how we show up in our relationships and how we want more. So when we're looking at the shadow of Juno, we'll just start off talking about infidelity and jealousy. So if you think about relationships that you've had in your past, or maybe that you're currently in, where there was an underlying worry about what is this person doing? Where are they? What if they find somebody that they like more than me? Are they flirting with other people? Do I feel that I can trust them? And I think that this is a common theme that can come up. I mean, certainly if not in your adult life, in adolescence. And we look at jealousy like a mirror for unresolved wounds. If we're practicing really seeing the wounds and bringing the medicine into our sacred partnerships, and this is how we build sacred partnerships, we have to keep looking at the shadows that rise up. And hopefully, we are with a partner that can meet us, that is actually trustworthy, that will not betray us. The relationships where there are the betrayals and there's the clear lack of trust, those are more of the karmic partnerships. When we're looking for this sacred love, we are looking for somebody that can help transform our suspicion into something that feels more deeply intimate because we are practicing communication, showing one another time after time that this is a safe and secure space. So some people look at jealousy as a reason to rage, throw tantrums. Some people are completely untrustworthy. They're not capable of doing the deeper work. And yet, the deeper work is exactly what is expected from these sacred partnerships. Now, there also is an element where we slip into sacrificing ourselves, where we lose ourselves. And this carries a lot of that Venus and Libra energy. There is this tension between the devotion to other, wanting to please our partner, and self-abandonment. And we have to have the wherewithal to identify when we've slipped into self-abandonment, right? We don't want to be in a relationship where it's all about us all the time and there's no devotion to the other person. But we can't flip that and make it all about the other person all the time either, especially if we are worried that if we don't devote ourselves, they're going to leave us. They'll abandon us. And we don't want to slip into this fear of rejection to the place that we push our partner away. And we can bring our attachment styles into this conversation. It's good to know your attachment style. If you have not ever looked that up or done any sort of online quiz, I would suggest it, because knowing that gives you some baseline information about what's going to happen to you in relationship when you're feeling stressed. Are you going to get clingy and insecure, or are you going to get distant and push away, or are you going to be all over the board and totally erratic? And our attachment styles relate back to the way that we were parented. So learning your attachment style can also give you great insight into what was it like for you in your earliest relationships, right? What did you notice? What did you witness? How was relationship modeled to you? Because you're carrying all of that into your adult relationships. And there can be a significant amount of unpacking what was modeled to you before you can even get onto the runway for a relationship that's moving towards sacred partnership. So this sacred partnership thing really requires a lot of deep personal introspection. This isn't just, I'm going to show up and have this lifelong romantic fairy tale relationship. It's like I have to examine myself. I have to look back into my childhood. I have to look at how I respond to stress. What happens to me in my core when I feel jealous, or I feel that I'm on the verge of being abandoned, or I feel that I have to give myself away. I have to fawn over my partner and become codependent with my partner in order to keep my partner around. So this relationship work comes with so many different rabbit holes that you can slip down into. But it's so important because these are relationships, not just of the romantic kind, but these are the solid foundational relationships that we want more of. People that we trust, that we can open ourselves up to and be really vulnerable with, even when it's not pretty, because we know that they are going to love and accept us no matter what. But in order to do that, we have to do a lot of work that is personal, where we're learning how to love and accept ourselves. We're also learning how to love and accept somebody else without bringing a ton of suspicion or annoyance or needing to manipulate them. And this concept of manipulation can come in really strong when we're talking about Juno as well. And remember, mythologically, Juno was a very manipulative spouse, and she had to be because Jupiter was not a very good partner. Jupiter was out having affairs and having other children. One thing when we're looking at this is bringing in our past and looking at relationships that we've already been through. Perhaps we were betrayed. Maybe we had partners that weren't trustworthy, that played on our jealousy, or maybe they were controlling, or maybe they were absent. So we bring a lot of baggage into our relationships. Not only our baggage, we also bring our parents' baggage because that's what we were watching. That's what was modeled to us. And then we also bring quite a bit of cultural baggage as well. One thing that's very popular right now, especially in like pop culture, pop music, is a theme that you can't trust your partner. Your partner is going to cheat on you. And that's just an example, but a lot of that can weave its way into our psyche when we're trying to build a long-term sustainable relationship. We have to really distinguish what is our intuition. Oh, this person doesn't feel like they have my best interest, or our projection of like, well, there are no good men out there, or all women are promiscuous. So this is another element that we have to bring into play when we are building foundational relationships. So this is where we have to bring in something like trust as a practice, as a choice, but not necessarily as a guarantee. We can't guarantee that the people that we love are going to show up for us and are going to keep their promises. And yet, there's something very powerful about choosing to trust because you also trust your intuition. Knowing that your radar has the capacity to be strong enough to choose the right person. And I can think back to some of my past relationships, and my radar was dysfunctional. It wasn't tuned to the right channel. I thought I was trusting my choices, but I was not. And in fact, I was ignoring a lot of red flags. So we talked about that last week in the karmic partnerships. If you're ignoring red flags, that is not choosing to trust. That is that person showing you that they are not somebody that you need to move forward in a sacred partnership with. So much of this is about learning to know ourselves, learning to trust our intuition, and being okay with letting somebody go if there are too many red flags, right? If there's too many things that make you contract or that make you go, then this is about understanding that the universe isn't just going to bring you like one potentially sacred relationship in your whole life. This is you working out relationship, maybe having to go through several of them before you can land on the partner that is capable of having the sacred relationship with you. As we know, we see a lot of people talking about the twin flames and how captivating and compelling the twin flame relationships are, and how they're really hard to end because there's this idea in the back of your mind that he or she is going to change. Our chemistry is so strong that we're going to find our footing and we are going to live happily ever after in bliss. And those are usually the ones where we're having to wait for the future. It's going to get good. They're going to improve. That we remember trust is a choice and it's a practice, and I do not have to trust everything. I can, in fact, use my discernment and say, this is not for me. Because there's a difference between fear of betrayal and manipulation as a concept. I don't want to get hurt again. And, oh my God, I don't think this person is a good person. You know on a gut level who is right for you. So we're learning how to tune in. So as I'm talking, just go ahead and take a deep breath and just notice how this information is landing. Now, I understand I'm talking to so many demographics of people, people that are in long-term loving relationships where they have done a lot of work and have a solid partnership. Some of this stuff may be resonant from your past. Some people who are in the middle of this, they are trying to disengage or they know that they need to let go of some sort of karmic partnership. People that have been in really bad relationships in the past and are choosing to be single because they're recovering. Some of this may really be impacting you. You might be feeling it strongly in your body. Just know that as a human on this planet, no matter where you are in your relationships and no matter who you're in relationship with, this is really potent information. It's basically leading you back to asking yourself questions about yourself and about how you have done relationship in the past and how you're doing it now. We also look at a fear in long-term relationship, a fear of sexuality, a fear of power imbalances. And depending on what your relationship is with intimacy and physical intimacy, this theme can come up in the middle of relationship. And sometimes it's about figuring out why you can't relax, figuring out why you don't feel intimate. Sometimes it is more along the lines of looking at a need for intimacy that can feel insatiable and why that is. So we come back to our attachment styles and say, what am I trying to avoid? Or what am I trying to get more of? So we use these things as entryway into inquiry for how can I use whatever is in the field of my intimacy within my sacred partnerships. And obviously, this is with your lovers, not with your business partners. But we can zoom out and say that intimacy work is incredibly important through building of this kind of relationship. And then finally, we have to bring children into this because children are typically involved in sacred partnerships, and you're together with your partner long enough, you may decide to have children. And like I alluded to earlier, Juno was not happy with her stepchildren. She wasn't kind to them, and she withheld her own children from her partner, Jupiter, as a retaliation. So using these as entryways into understanding the deeper work that we need to do personally within each relationship. So if you have children, this could be a matter of just looking at how You might accidentally, because I don't think any of us really intend to act out, but the ways that you might accidentally use your children to either shield yourself from deeper intimacy or maybe to manipulate your partner to get more of what you want. You can also look at generational cycles of manipulation that maybe were passed down the family line. Maybe it was modeled to you that you paid more attention to the children than to your partner. And ideally, in a sacred partnership, we are prioritizing the partnership so that we can create a stronger foundation for the family. But essentially, this is just an invitation into cultivating a more conscious co-parenting. And so I'm just bringing all of this into the conversation about how we must be intentional when we're building out our sacred partnerships. And the difference between working through these fears, working through these difficulties, or just living in the shadow of them. Right? We get into autopilot, many of us, and we're on our day-to-day life. A lot of the things that could be potentially deepening for us, we just sweep under the rug because we don't want to deal with it. And we haven't really been working on strengthening our trust or our connection or our spiritual commitment to one another. So, this is an invitation to do some of that within your relationship if you're not already. And next week, I will release Juno through the houses and signs so that you can get a sense of the entry points, the energy that you're working with personally that can be a huge resource for you as you're slowly but surely creating more divine partnership in your life. All right, I hope this was helpful. I will see you all next week.